My name is Jordan Reyes, and I'm sitting in my modest San Francisco apartment watching the sunset paint the city in shades of amber and gold. Through my window, I can see the gleaming towers of the financial district, and somewhere among them stands the sleek headquarters of Verdance, the company that everyone believes my younger brother Alec built from nothing. If only they knew the truth. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My coffee table is covered with sketches of solar panel prototypes and energy storage systems, mixed with my 8-year-old daughter Sienna's crayon drawings of superheroes and rainbows. She's asleep now, curled up on the couch with her favorite blanket, completely unaware that her quiet father is the architect behind one of the city's fastest-growing green tech companies. I've been living this double life for 3 years now, ever since Alec and I shook hands in my kitchen and I agreed to fund his vision for sustainable energy solutions. Back then he was just a passionate college dropout with big dreams and bigger mouth. I was the one with the capital, the connections, and the strategic mind to turn those dreams into reality. The memory of that handshake still burns, not because I regret it, but because of what it represents, my decision to stay in the shadows while my brother stepped into the spotlight. After my first startup crashed and burned spectacularly 5 years ago, taking my reputation and my father's respect with it, I swore I'd never put my name on anything again. The humiliation of that failure, the disappointed look in my father Raoul's eyes, the way investors scattered like roaches when the lights came on, it all cut too deep. So when Alec came to me with his idea for Verdance, I made a choice. I would invest quietly, guide strategically, and let him be the public face. My lawyer, Clara Villanueva, thought I was crazy when I asked her to structure the ownership through shell entities and private equity backing, giving me 51% control while keeping my name buried in legal documents that Alec never bothered to read. "You're building a company for someone else to get credit for," she warned me 3 years ago, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed the paperwork in her downtown office. I remember shrugging. Better than building nothing at all. Quote, "Now, as I watched the news coverage of Verdance's latest breakthrough in solar storage technology that Naomi Chan and I developed in secret over countless late-night sessions, I wonder if I was wrong. On the screen, Alec stands confidently at a podium, his charm and charisma captivating the audience as he talks about his vision for a sustainable future. The reporters hang on his every word, and I can see the hunger in his eyes as he basks in their attention. My phone buzzes with a text from Naomi. "Saw the press conference. You should be up there, not him." I don't reply. Instead, I close my laptop and check on Sienna, pulling her blanket up to her chin. She stirs slightly, mumbling something about solar-powered rockets in her sleep. At least someone in this family still believes in dreams without the need for recognition. Tomorrow I'll return to Verdance as Jordan Reyes, the quiet advisor who sits in the back of meetings and offers gentle suggestions. But tonight, I'm just a father watching his daughter sleep, wondering how much longer I can remain a ghost in the machine I built. The email arrived at 7:43 a.m., marked urgent with a red exclamation point that made my stomach clench. "Meeting tomorrow. Your attendance is required. Conference room A, 2 p.m. sharp. Alec." I should have known something was wrong by the tone. Alec never sent formal meeting requests. He usually just burst into whatever space I occupied and started talking. But I convinced myself it was routine business, maybe a discussion about the new solar panel efficiency metrics that Naomi and I had been perfecting. I was wrong. The Verdance headquarters on Market Street gleamed like a monument to innovation, its glass facade reflecting the afternoon sun as I walked through the lobby. Employees nodded respectfully as I passed, some stopping to chat about weekend plans or their kids' soccer games. To them, I was Jordan Reyes, the quiet advisor who somehow always knew the right questions to ask. They had no idea I was the one who had recruited half of them personally, who had approved their salaries, who had shaped every major decision that brought Verdance to where it stood today. Conference room A was packed when I arrived. The entire executive team sat around the polished oak table, Naomi with her laptop open, Layla Rhodes from PR checking her phone, and several department heads looking uncomfortable. At the head of the table sat Alec, wearing his signature black turtleneck and the kind of confident smile that used to make me proud. Now it just made me uneasy. "Jordan, perfect timing," Alex said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please, sit down." I took my usual spot near the back, expecting to blend into the background as always, but this time, all eyes remained on me. The room felt heavy with unspoken tension. "I've called this meeting to discuss some important structural changes at Verdance," Alec began, his voice carrying the practiced cadence he'd perfected for press conferences. "As we continue to scale, we need to streamline our operations and focus our resources where they can have the greatest impact." I nodded, assuming he was talking about budget allocations or departmental reorganization. Then he turned to face me directly, and I saw something cold in his eyes that I'd never seen before. "Jordan, I want to thank you for your contributions to Verdance over the past 3 years. Your advisory role has been valuable. But as we enter this new phase of growth, we're going to be restructuring the advisory board. Effective immediately, we'll be transitioning away from your services." The words hit me like a physical blow. Around the table, I could see shock register on several faces. Naomi's pen snapped in her grip. Lila looked up from her phone with wide eyes, but Alec continued as if he were discussing quarterly projections. "Of course, we'll provide a generous severance package and excellent recommendations for your next opportunity. I'm sure you understand, this is just business." I sat there for a moment, processing what had just happened. My own brother had just fired me from the company I had built, funded, and guided from conception. He spoke as if I were some expendable consultant, rather than the architect of everything he claimed as his own. "I understand," I said quietly, standing up from my chair. My voice remained steady, but inside I felt something shifting, a quiet resolve crystallizing into steel. I walked out of conference room A without another word, leaving behind the shocked faces and whispered conversations. As the elevator doors closed, I caught a glimpse of Naomi watching me through the glass, her expression one of barely contained fury. 20 minutes later, I sat in my car in the parking garage, staring at my phone. My finger hovered over Clara's number for a long moment before I finally pressed call. "Clara, it's Jordan," I said when she answered. "I think it's time." Clara's office smelled like expensive leather and fresh coffee, the kind of place where million-dollar deals were dissected with surgical precision. She sat across from me, her dark eyes blazing with the kind of fury that made opposing lawyers reconsider their career choices. "That arrogant little," she caught herself, straightening her blazer. "Jordan, this is outrageous. He fired you from your own company." The documents spread across her mahogany desk told the real story of Verdance. Shell companies, private equity structures, carefully crafted ownership agreements, all leading back to one undeniable fact. I owned 51% of everything Alec thought belonged to him. Reyes Holdings LLC holds 35% through the initial funding round, Clara said, sliding the papers toward me. Emerald Ventures, your second shell entity, controls another 16% from the Series A investment. Then there's your direct stake through the founders' agreement. She tapped the signature line where both Alec and I had signed 3 years ago. He never read the fine print, did he? I shook my head, remembering how eager Alec had been to get started, how he'd waved off my suggestion that he have his own lawyer review the documents. He trusted me. Ironic, isn't it? Trust is a luxury you can't afford anymore. Clara leaned forward, her voice sharp with conviction. "We file an emergency injunction tonight. Force a board meeting. Expose everything. By Monday morning, you'll be sitting in the CEO chair where you belong." But I held up my hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "No, not yet." Clara stared at me as if I'd lost my mind. "Jordan, what are you waiting for? He humiliated you in front of your entire team. He threw away everything you've built together." "I don't want revenge, Clara. I want control, but with purpose." I picked up one of the documents, studying my own signature from 3 years ago. "I've been quietly reinvesting the profits back into R&D. Naomi and I have been developing something that could change everything, not just for Verdance, but for renewable energy worldwide. My phone buzzed with a text from Naomi. Something's wrong. He's rewriting the R&D agenda, killing the solar storage project. We need to talk. I showed Clara the message. Her jaw tightened. He's going to destroy everything you've built, she said quietly. The research, the innovations, the team you've carefully assembled. Is that really what you want to watch happen? I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. Somewhere out there, Alec was probably celebrating his decisive leadership move, believing he'd finally stepped out of his older brother's shadow. He had no idea that shadow was about to become a tidal wave. Give me 48 hours, I said finally. I want to see how far he'll go. Document everything. Every decision, every change, every mistake. When I move, I want it to be overwhelming and undeniable. Clara nodded slowly, already reaching for her legal pad. Fine. But Jordan? When this is over, no more hiding in the shadows. Promise me. I turned back to face her, feeling something shift inside me, the same feeling I'd had when I first sketched out the plans for Verdance on my kitchen table. I promise. 3 days after my firing, I watched from my apartment as Alec stood before a crowd of reporters at Verdance headquarters, unveiling what he called the future of personal renewable energy. The live stream showed him holding up a sleek wristband embedded with miniature solar cells, the Verdance Pulse, a wearable device that could supposedly charge phones and small electronics. It was flashy, marketable, and completely untested. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I knew this because Naomi and I had shelved the wearable project 8 months ago, after discovering fatal flaws in the energy conversion rates. The device would take 6 hours of direct sunlight to charge a phone for 10 minutes of use. It was a marketing gimmick masquerading as innovation. My phone rang. Naomi's voice was tight with frustration. Did you see the press conference? He announced a product that doesn't work. When the engineering team tried to object this morning, he told us to figure it out and make it happen in 6 weeks. I could hear the strain in her voice. Naomi Chen was the most ethical engineer I'd ever met, someone who would rather kill a project than release something substandard. Watching her integrity clash with Alec's reckless ambition was painful. What did the team say? I asked. Half of them are panicking. The other half are updating their resumes. She paused. Jordan, he's also killed the solar storage project. Called it too expensive and complicated for market demands. 3 years of research, just gone. I closed my eyes. The solar storage project was my baby, a breakthrough in battery technology that could revolutionize home energy systems. It was 2 months away from prototype completion, and Alec had just terminated it to fund a glorified piece of jewelry. That afternoon, I received a call from Marcus Chen, one of our early investors. His voice carried the careful diplomacy of someone delivering bad news. Jordan, I wanted to give you a heads up. We're pulling out of the residential solar initiative. The new leadership direction doesn't align with our sustainability goals. He paused. Between you and me, what's happening over there? Alec seems to think he can pivot Verdance into consumer tech overnight. After hanging up, I sat in my living room staring at the sketches scattered across my coffee table. Designs for solar panels that could operate efficiently in low-light conditions. Innovations that could bring renewable energy to communities that had never had access before. All of it now deemed unmarketable by my brother. Layla Rhodes called me that evening, her voice hushed, as if she were afraid of being overheard. I need to ask you something off the record, she said. How involved were you really in Verdance's founding? Because what I'm seeing from Alec doesn't match the strategic vision that built this company. I chose my words carefully. Why do you ask? Because investors are asking questions. The engineering team is in revolt, and I'm supposed to spin this chaos into a success story. Her voice cracked slightly. Jordan, I think he's going to destroy everything, and I don't know how to stop it. After she hung up, I called Clara. Document everything, I told her. Every canceled project, every investor we lose, every team member who quits. I want a complete record of the damage. Jordan, Clara's voice was gentle but firm. How much more evidence do you need? He's dismantling your life's work piece by piece. I watched Sienna coloring at the kitchen table, her tongue poking out in concentration as she carefully filled in a drawing of a house powered by rainbow-colored solar panels. "Just a little longer," I said. "I want everyone to see who he really is when the pressure mounts." The marina at dawn was quiet except for the gentle lapping of waves against the hulls of sailboats. I sat on a bench overlooking the bay, waiting for Naomi as seagulls circled overhead in lazy spirals. She'd insisted we meet somewhere far from Verdance's reach, somewhere Alec's paranoia couldn't follow us. She arrived carrying 2 cups of coffee, her usually pristine appearance slightly disheveled. Dark circles under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights spent trying to make Alec's impossible promises work. "3 more engineers quit yesterday," she said without preamble, handing me a cup. "The best ones. They're not willing to put their names on products they know will fail." I nodded, watching a cargo ship disappear into the morning fog. How much longer can the team hold together? "Not long." Naomi sat beside me, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Jordan, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. What aren't you telling me about your relationship with Verdance? Because what I'm watching doesn't make sense." For 3 years I'd kept my secret from everyone except Clara. But sitting there, watching the woman who had poured her brilliance into my vision struggle with my brother's incompetence, I felt the weight of that silence becoming unbearable. "You want the truth?" I took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I had a company called Solaris Dynamics. Clean energy solutions, revolutionary battery technology, everything I believed in. I was the golden boy of Silicon Valley, 28 years old and convinced I was changing the world. Naomi turned to face me, her eyes widening with recognition. "You're that Jordan Reyes, the founder who lost everything in the tech crash. $60 million. Gone in 6 months when our manufacturing partner turned out to be running a Ponzi scheme. The old wound still ached when I spoke about it. But the money wasn't the worst part. It was watching my father's face when I had to tell him I'd lost his retirement savings too. The way he looked at me like I was a stranger who had stolen his son's face. I could still remember that conversation in my father's workshop, surrounded by the mechanical drawings and blueprints that had inspired my love of innovation. Raul Reyes had worked his entire life as an engineer, saving every penny to support his son's dreams. When Solaris collapsed, I didn't just lose my company. I lost my identity as the son who was supposed to carry on the family legacy. After that, Dad pinned all his hopes on Alec, the younger son who wouldn't make his older brother's mistakes. I laughed bitterly. When Alec came to me with the Verdance idea, Dad actually tried to talk him out of taking my money. Said I was poison to any venture I touched. Naomi's coffee cup trembled in her hands. "So you stayed silent, let Alec take credit because you were afraid of failing again." "Terrified," I corrected. "But now I'm watching him destroy everything I've built, and I realize that hiding was just another kind of failure." She set down her coffee and turned to face me fully. "Jordan, Alec doesn't deserve what you created. The innovations, the team, the mission, none of it belongs to him. You have to stop this." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "Emergency board member wants to meet. Says there are others who remember your real contributions. Are you ready?" I showed Naomi the message. For the first time in days, I saw hope flicker in her eyes. "The question isn't whether I'm ready," I said, standing up and looking out at the bay where the morning sun was burning away the fog. "The question is whether Verdance is ready for who I really am." The financial reports arrived in my inbox at 2:47 a.m., leaked by someone inside Verdance who clearly wanted me to see how far the company had fallen. Stock prices had dropped 18% in 2 weeks. 3 major contracts had been canceled. The Verdance Pulse pre-orders were hemorrhaging refunds after early reviewers called it, quote, expensive junk. But what really caught my attention was the internal memo that followed, a panicked message from Alec scheduling an emergency all-hands meeting for that morning. His tone had shifted from confident CEO to desperate damage control. I found myself drawn to the Verdance headquarters like a moth to flame, parking across the street where I could observe without being seen. Through the glass walls of the lobby, I watched employees filing in with the grim expressions of people attending a funeral. My phone buzzed with a text from Lila. He's losing it. Complete meltdown in progress. You need to see this. 20 minutes later, she sent me a voice recording from the meeting. Alec's voice crackled through my phone speakers, high-pitched and strained with barely controlled panic. I don't want to hear excuses, he was shouting. The engineering team told me the pulse would work. Marketing promised me coverage would be positive. PR said investors were confident. Everyone failed me. Quote, I could hear murmurs of discontent rippling through the crowd. Then Naomi's voice, clear and professional. With respect, Alec, the engineering team explicitly warned you about the pulse's limitations. We recommended postponing the launch until... Recommended? I'm the CEO. I make the decisions. His voice was shrill now, completely unhinged. Maybe if you spent more time solving problems instead of making excuses, we wouldn't be in this mess. The recording cut off, but Layla sent another text. Half the room walked out. Naomi submitted her resignation letter 20 minutes ago. I stared at my phone in shock. Naomi had been at Verdance since the beginning, one of the most respected voices in sustainable technology. If she was willing to abandon ship, the situation was even worse than I'd imagined. That afternoon, I sat in a private dining room at the St. Regis with David Kim, the venture capitalist who had helped fund Verdance's Series B round. He was a careful man who didn't waste time on pleasantries. Jordan, I'll be direct. We're concerned about the current leadership trajectory at Verdance. The company we invested in doesn't exist anymore. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. We remember who really built this company. We remember the vision, the strategy, the innovations that made Verdance special. What are you saying, David? I'm saying that if someone with the right experience and track record were to emerge and provide stable leadership, our fund would be very supportive. He slid a business card across the table. That's my private number. When you're ready to reclaim what's yours, call me. After he left, I sat alone in the restaurant, staring at the card. Outside, San Francisco hummed with its usual energy. Startups being born, fortunes being made and lost, dreams being built and shattered. I pulled out my phone and dialed Clara's number. Clara, it's Jordan, I said when she answered. File the paperwork. I'm calling the board. There was a pause, then Clara's voice filled with quiet satisfaction. About damn time. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Friday at 4 p.m., giving Clara exactly 48 hours to file the paperwork that would change everything. I spent those 2 days in a strange state of calm, like an actor preparing for the performance of his lifetime. Thursday morning, I sat in Sienna's school parking lot after drop-off, watching Clara's legal assistant deliver hand-signed documents to every board member. By noon, my phone was buzzing with confused calls from directors who couldn't believe what they were reading. Jordan Reyes holds majority ownership? David Kim's voice carried disbelief and admiration in equal measure. How long have you been sitting on this? 3 years, I replied simply. Long enough to watch my brother destroy what we built together. The coup began in earnest that afternoon. Clara had orchestrated it like a symphony, each movement designed to maximize impact while staying completely within legal bounds. First came the formal notice of a shareholder-initiated board meeting. Then the revelation of my ownership structure, complete with documentation going back to Verdance's founding. Finally, the testimonials from key employees and investors supporting a leadership change. Alec called me at 6:23 p.m., his voice shaking with rage and confusion. What the hell is this, Jordan? Some lawyer is claiming you own my company. This is insane. Your company? I kept my voice steady, almost gentle. Alec, when did you last read the founding documents we signed 3 years ago? There was silence on the other end. Then the sound of papers rustling. This is some kind of mistake. You invested in me. You didn't. You couldn't. I own 51%, Alec. I always have. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Why? Because I believed in you. Because I thought we were building something together. I paused, watching the sunset paint my apartment walls gold. Because I was too afraid to put my name on another company after Solaris failed. And now you're going to take it away from me. I'm going to save it from you. Friday arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of San Francisco weather that matched the somber mood in Verdance's top-floor conference room. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing my best suit and carrying a leather folder containing 3 years of documentation. The board members filed in with expressions ranging from confusion to curiosity to outright support. David Kim nodded at me with a slight smile. Margaret Foster, the renewable energy veteran who had joined our board 6 months ago, gave me an encouraging pat on the shoulder. Alec entered last, flanked by his assistant and looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes found mine across the table, and for a moment I saw my little brother, the one who used to help me build solar-powered toy cars in our garage, who believed we could change the world together. Then Margaret called the meeting to order, and Clara began presenting the evidence that would transfer control of Verdance from the brother who had claimed it to the brother who had built it. "Ladies and gentlemen," Clara said, her voice carrying the authority of absolute legal certainty, "I present the documentation proving that Jordan Reyes is the majority shareholder and rightful CEO of Verdance Technologies." Alec's face went pale as the board began asking questions that would seal his fate and awaken mine. The board vote was unanimous, 7-0 in favor of removing Alec Reyes as CEO and installing Jordan Reyes as his replacement. When Margaret Foster announced the decision, Alec stood so abruptly his chair toppled backward. "This is a coup," he said, his voice raw with betrayal. "You're all going to regret this when the media finds out what really happened here." But, as he stormed toward the door, David Kim's voice stopped him cold. "Alec, the media already knows. We briefed them an hour ago." I watched my brother's face crumble as the reality hit him. By the time he reached the parking garage, reporters would be waiting. The story of the hidden founder was already spreading across tech blogs and financial news sites. After Alec left, I sat in his former chair, my chair now, and looked around the conference room at faces that had seemed foreign just an hour ago. Now they were my board, my responsibility, my team to lead back from the brink. "What's our first priority?" Margaret asked, her tone businesslike but warm. "Damage control," I replied. "We need to halt the Pulse production immediately, bring back the engineers who quit, and resurrect the solar storage project. Most importantly, we need to restore confidence that Verdance stands for innovation, not gimmicks." The next 48 hours blurred together in a whirlwind of crisis management. I moved into Alec's office, stripping away his motivational posters and replacing them with the original Verdance prototypes that had been gathering dust in storage. The engineering team began trickling back as word spread that the real founder was in charge. The media coverage was intense, but surprisingly sympathetic. Lila had done her job well, painting the story as a visionary returning to save his creation rather than a hostile takeover. "The quiet genius behind Verdance emerges," read the headline in TechCrunch. But the moment that mattered most came Wednesday evening when I was working late, reviewing budgets, and trying to calculate how much damage we could undo. I heard footsteps in the hallway and looked up to see my father, Raul Reyes, standing in my doorway. He looked older than I remembered, his thick black hair now streaked with silver, his engineer's hands weathered by decades of work. We stared at each other for a long moment, the son who had failed and the father who had given up on him. "Mijo," he said finally, using the endearment he hadn't called me in 5 years. "I came to apologize." I set down my pen, not trusting my voice. "I was wrong about you after Solaris. Wrong to blame you, wrong to doubt you, wrong to put all my faith in Alec." His voice cracked slightly. "You built something beautiful here, Jordan. Something that matters." We embraced awkwardly across my desk, two engineers who had forgotten how to be father and son, but were willing to learn again. Later that night, I found a crayon drawing Sienna had left on my kitchen counter, a stick-figure man in a suit standing in front of a tall building, with Daddy the Boss written in purple letters. For the first time in years, I felt like I knew exactly who I was supposed to be. The coffee shop on Valencia Street was exactly the kind of place Alec would have avoided during his CEO days. Small, unpretentious, filled with freelancers typing on laptops instead of venture capitalists making deals. When he walked through the door 3 weeks after the board meeting, I barely recognized him. Gone was the confident swagger, the designer clothes, the aura of untouchable success. This version of my brother wore a wrinkled button-down and jeans, his hair uncombed, his eyes carrying the hollow look of someone who had lost everything that defined him. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. His voice was quiet, almost fragile. "Of course." I pushed a cup of coffee toward him, black, the way he'd always liked it. "How are you holding up?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You mean, how am I handling being exposed as a fraud? How am I dealing with every tech blog calling me the fake founder who stole credit from his brother?" He took a sip of coffee and winced. "I'm not, if I'm being honest." We sat in silence for a moment, two brothers who had built something beautiful together and then watched it nearly tear them apart. "Jordan, I need to ask you something," Alec said finally. "When you let me be the face of Verdance, when you gave me all that credit, why? You could have had everything from the beginning." I thought about the question I'd been asking myself for weeks, because I was afraid. After Solaris failed, I convinced myself I was poison to anything I touched. I thought maybe if I stayed hidden, I couldn't ruin it for you. But you didn't stay hidden, did you? You were there for every major decision, every innovation, every breakthrough. I was just the mouthpiece. No, Alec, you were the inspiration. Your passion, your belief that we could change the world. That's what drew people to Verdance. I provided the strategy and the funding, but you provided the heart. His eyes filled with tears he was trying not to shed. "Then why does it feel like I lost everything that mattered?" "Because you forgot that the heart was the most important part." I leaned forward, choosing my words carefully. "The company isn't what made you special, Alec. Your vision, your ability to make people believe in something bigger than themselves, that's still there." He was quiet for a long time, staring into his coffee as if it held answers to questions he didn't know how to ask. "I want to come back," he said suddenly. "Not as CEO, not as some figurehead. I want to learn how to actually build something instead of just talking about it." I studied his face, looking for traces of the ego that had nearly destroyed everything we'd created. Instead, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: humility. "Field sales," I said finally, "bottom rung. You'd be selling solar panels to homeowners in Central Valley suburbs. Long drives, difficult customers, small commissions. I'll take it." That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I pulled out the original Verdance sketchbook, the one where Alec and I had first drawn our ideas for changing the world, back when we were just two brothers who believed in renewable energy and each other. I drove to his apartment and left it on his doorstep with a note: "Let's build something beautiful again, together this time." When I got home, Sienna was waiting with a new drawing. This one showed two stick figures holding hands in front of a building with solar panels, both figures wearing crowns made of crayon suns. "Is Uncle Alec coming back to work with you?" she asked. "Maybe," I said, hanging her drawing on the refrigerator next to all the others. "If he remembers how to be my brother again." 6 months later, I walked through the Verdance headquarters with Sienna's small hand in mine, watching her eyes widen at the colorful murals that now decorated our walls. Each one told the story of a community that had received renewable energy access through our new Green Equity Initiative, from solar cooperatives in rural Louisiana to wind farms on Native American reservations. "Daddy, is that the village you helped in Guatemala?" Sienna pointed to a vibrant painting of children playing beneath solar panels that powered their school. "That's one of Uncle Alec's projects," I said, pride evident in my voice. "He spent 3 weeks there teaching families how to maintain their systems." The transformation had been remarkable. After 6 months in field sales, Alec had returned to Verdance, not as the media-hungry CEO he'd once been, but as someone who understood what our technology meant to real people. He'd stood in farmers' kitchens explaining how solar panels could cut their electricity bills in half. He'd watched single mothers see their first electric light bulb powered by clean energy. He'd learned that innovation without purpose was just expensive noise. "Jordan?" Naomi's voice called from across the lobby. She approached with a tablet in hand, her face glowing with excitement. The efficiency tests on the new storage batteries are off the charts. We're looking at a 40% improvement over anything currently on the market. The solar storage project that Alec had killed in his corporate panic had become the crown jewel of Verdance 2.0. Clara, now a permanent board member, had helped us secure patents that would revolutionize home energy storage for the next decade. "When do we go public with the results?" I asked. "Lila wants to coordinate the announcement with the launch of our community partnerships in East Oakland," Naomi replied. "She says the story is stronger when we show both the technology and the impact." Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Alec in the parking lot, loading solar panel samples into his truck for another sales trip. He'd volunteered to expand our community outreach program, taking Verdance directly to underserved neighborhoods that had been ignored by traditional energy companies. That afternoon, I stood before the entire Verdance team for our quarterly all-hands meeting. The room buzzed with an energy I hadn't felt since our earliest days. People who believed not just in what we were building, but why we were building it. 3 years ago, we started Verdance with a simple mission, I began, looking out at faces that had become family. We wanted to prove that sustainable energy could be accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. Today, we're not just a tech company. We're a movement. The applause was thunderous, but what meant the most was seeing Alec in the back row, clapping along with everyone else, no longer needing to be the center of attention to feel valuable. Later that evening, as I tucked Sienna into bed, she looked up at me with her mother's wise eyes. "Daddy, are you happy now?" I thought about the question, about the years of hiding, the betrayal, the painful journey back to wholeness, about Alec learning humility in suburban living rooms, about Naomi's innovations changing lives across continents, about our father finally seeing both his sons clearly. "Yes, sweetheart," I said, kissing her forehead. "I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be." Power doesn't come from speaking the loudest. It comes from knowing who you are and finally stepping into the light. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.